Hi friends, welcome back to the third chapter of your Indian economy, and the chapter is titled as Poverty and Unemployment in India. By the word itself, you can understand it's about poverty, the situation, the economical situation of the people in India, and also about unemployment. The youths or the educated people or both the uneducated people don't have work or jobs to do in India. So what are the problems and the other things related to poverty and unemployment? Yeah, so the concept of poverty, the module has been divided into 7 parts. First of all, the concept of poverty, what is actually poverty and what are the causes of poverty. These two things are there. Then we have about unemployment in India, the causes of unemployment. Then what are the programs of employment generation and poverty eradication from the part of the government, and self-help group and women empowerment. So basically it's divided into 3 parts. First of all, we deal with causes of poverty and the concept of poverty, then concept of unemployment and the causes of unemployment. Then we deal with the programs for eradication of poverty and employment generation. Yeah, first of all, concept of poverty. Poverty is a fundamental and chronic problem of the Indian economy. It is a social and economic phenomenon in which a section of the society is unable to meet its basic necessities of life. So that is what is poverty. By definition of World Bank, the inability to attain a minimum standard of living is called as poverty. So there are two concepts of poverty used in economics. They are absolute poverty and relative poverty. Which are the two concepts? Absolute poverty and relative poverty. First of all, absolute poverty. If a person's income or consumption expenditure is so low that he cannot live at minimum subsistence level, he is said to be absolutely poor. Once again, if the person's income or consumption expenditure is so low that he cannot live at a minimum subsistence level, I think the person doesn't have even the minimum necessities to live, it's called as absolute poverty. It basically indicates deprivation of some sort resulting in hunger and starvation. People are said to be in absolute poverty if their earnings are inefficient to obtain minimum necessities. So that is about absolute poverty. Now relative poverty. The concept of relative poverty indicates inequalities of income. That means if 5 people are there, if the first person is having 50,000 rupees salary, second person 40, third person 30, fourth person 20, fifth person 10,000. So the fifth person is actually relatively poor compared to the other 4. That is what is called as inequalities of income. So that is what is relative poverty. Concept of relative poverty indicates inequalities of income. The people of low income groups are relatively poor as compared to people whose income are high. So relative inequality, relative poverty is always in comparison to others. When it is compared to others, what is your position, where are you poor or not? For example, among the rich, if suppose there are 3 people who are, one person is having an income of 5,500 crores, second person 200 crores, third person 100 crores. So the 100 crore person is relatively poor as compared to the 500 and 200 crore people. So that is relative, that means comparison. Whereas absolute poverty is you cannot even have the basic minimum to live. Basic minimum subsistence is also not fulfilled, is absolute poverty. Now coming to poverty line. The concept of poverty line is used to measure the extent of poverty and the number of poor people in the country. According to this concept, the minimum food requirement for a subsistence level is calculated and then converted into monetary terms by taking the current price into account. In other words, the poverty line is drawn at the minimum income which is necessary to purchase the minimum nutritional flow. The Planning Commission of India has defined the poverty line on the basis of recommended nutritional requirements of 2,400 calories per day for rural areas and 2,100 calories per person per day for urban areas. So if the people are not able to meet at least this much calorie needs every day, they are said to be below poverty line. So in India also we have the BPL. You might have heard of the ration cards in which they write APL and BPL. So what is BPL? It's below poverty line. APL is above poverty line. So that line is drawn in order to show whether the person is poor or not, and all the census are given. The percentages and the different ratios of number of people who are poor from 1950 to 2011 is given over here, which you can go through. Yeah. Next, the causes of poverty. This is about the concept of poverty. The concept of poverty we studied. What is poverty? The two types of poverty, absolute and relative poverty, and the concept of poverty line. Okay. Now we are going to causes of poverty. Poverty in India is a complex phenomenon, and as such is the outcome of the interaction of diverse factors, economical and uneconomical. Now some of the following factors are causes. So yeah, we continue. What are the causes of poverty in India? First of all, large and rapid growth of population. Now, as we know, India is a very highly populated country. So when the population increases, automatically the resources or the money or the monetary factors in India have to be distributed with so many people, as a result of which so many people are poor. First of all, rapid and large growth of population. Second, prevalence of chronic unemployment and underemployment. That means there are two things. First of all, unemployment means people don't have job, and underemployment means a person is not doing a job for what he is capable of. For example, if a person is a graduate who is a teacher, but the person is not getting a job to teach, but rather the person is doing some menial construction work. So that is called as underemployment. So that is another reason for poverty. Third one, inequalities in income and wealth distribution. That means the income is not equally divided among the people. The national income is not equally divided. A small number of people are holding a large number of wealth of the country, and also wealth is not equally distributed. That is another reason. Fourth, low per capita income. That means the income per person is very low in India. Bearing a few countries, the per capita income of Indian people is one of the lowest of the world. Consequently, living standards of the vast majority of people is miserably low. That means the income in the hands of one person, the total income of the country divided by the average income in the hand of one person is very less in India. Fourth is defective implementation of welfare program. So Indian government always makes lots of welfare program for women, for the poor, for the rural people, etc. But the implementation part is very weak in India, as a result of which people are poor. Backwardness of agricultural sector. In India, too many people depend on agriculture. Moreover, agriculture in India is taken as a way of life. So, but the agricultural sector is very backward in India. First of all, the technology used is very backward. Underdeveloped technology is being used, and the people who are in agriculture are also paid very less, as a result of which poverty do stay in India. Next is inflation. Inflation means a situation whereby the price of a commodity increases very fast. On the other hand, it can also, from the economical terms, it can be told that the value of the currency, for example, earlier if suppose 1 kilo of onion cost, onion we used to get for 50 rupees last year. This year, if same onion is costing you 100 rupees, that means the 1 kilo of onion is costing you 100 rupees. That means there is an inflation, there is a price rise. We tell, like diesel and diesel petrol and all, we have an inflation now. Price has gone up so much. On the other hand, we can tell it in the economical currency term is that the value of the money, that means 1 kilo of onion earlier used to get at 50 rupees, but now you have to pay 100 rupees. The value that the money used to get earlier is not there. It has come down. So that is called as inflation. So as a result of this, people in India remain poor. And next is other reasons. Some of the other reasons for poverty are low productivity of labor and low wages. The labors are not that productive and the wages are also less. Low asset base of the poor and limited sources of income. Illiteracy and unskilled labor. Corruption and nepotism. Now, I hope you know what is nepotism. Nepotism means the people, suppose a father, a person's a person is a politician, he or she will try to bring his son or her son as politician. So this is carried on favoritism, that is nepotism. Favoritism, that is called as nepotism. My favorite will become the next come to power or become the next person. So that is nepotism, not based on the capacity or quality of the person, but by the very fact that he is my favorite or she is my favorite, she will become the next authority. That is nepotism. Unorganized labor, conservative and fatalist outlook, inequalities in educational levels and professional training. So these are the causes of poverty in India. So we look what is poverty, concept of poverty, absolute and relative poverty and poverty line. Then we looked about causes of poverty, 7 of them are, 6 of them are there, and the 7th one are the other reasons. Now let's look about unemployment in India. Unemployment may be defined as a situation in which the person is capable of working both physically and mentally at the existing wage rate but does not get a job. The person is capable of working but the person is not able to get a job. That is what is unemployment. Now the types of unemployment in India, this is important. Open unemployment. Open unemployment is a situation wherein a large section of the labor force does not get a job that may yield them regular income. This type of unemployment can be seen and counted in terms of number of unemployed persons. The labor force expands at a faster rate than the growth rate of economy. Therefore, all people do not get jobs. So, open unemployment is a situation wherein large section of labor force do not get a job that may yield them regular income. So, a big number of people are remaining unemployed. That's open unemployment. Disguised unemployment is a situation in which more people are doing work than actually required. For example, in a small plot of land, only 2 people might be required to be working over there to finish the work, but 5 people are together working over there. This is called as disguised unemployment. So that is another problem. Seasonal unemployment, that depends on the farm and all. So you have work for 6 months, after that for 6 months you don't have work, you have to simply sit. So that is seasonal and because of seasons employment. For example, a person who is selling umbrella, they have business only during the rainy season. For the other part of the year they are without any job. So that is about the season. The climatic condition and season results in unemployment. Cyclic unemployment, it is caused by trade cycles at regular intervals. Generally, capitalist economies are subject to trade cycles. Cyclic unemployment is normally a short-term phenomenon. Educated unemployment. Among the educated people, apart from open unemployment, many are underemployed because their qualification do not match the job. As I told you earlier, a teacher going for a construction work, they are not meant to do the construction work, but since they don't get employment, they go over there. So that is educated unemployment. Technological unemployment, it is a result of certain changes in the techniques of production which may not warrant much labor. So what happens in technological unemployment is, for example, earlier 5 people used to sit together and do the production work of produce biscuit, but now a new technology, a machine is brought and only one person is required to do the same work. So because of technology, some of them become unemployed. That is technological unemployment. Structural unemployment. This type of unemployment arises due to drastic change in the economic structure of the country. These changes may affect either the supply of the factor or a demand of the factor of production. Because of the structural change, some people get unemployed. So that is structural unemployment. Yeah, so that is what is structural unemployment. Next is about underemployment. It is a situation in which people employed contribute less to their capacity to production. That means a postgraduate may work as clerk, for which only PUC pass is enough. So people who are working below their educational qualification is called as a underemployment. Now, casual unemployment. When a person is employed on a day-to-day basis, casual unemployment may occur due to short-term contracts. Shortage of raw material means tomorrow work is not there, day after tomorrow work is there. That means it's casual unemployment because of shortage of raw material, falling demand, chain of ownership, etc. Chronic unemployment. If unemployment continues to be to a long-term feature of country, it's called as chronic unemployment. frictional unemployment. Unemployment is caused due to improper adjustment between supply of labor and demand for labor. If suppose the demand is more, the supply is not there, or if the supply is more, demand is not there, what happens is what we get is called as frictional unemployment. Now, usual principal status unemployment, also known as open unemployment or chronic unemployment. This measure, now this is a measure whereby to know what is the unemployment status, estimates the number of persons who remained unemployed for a major part of the year. So, if the person was working only for 1 month or 2 months, but for a major part of the year, their people are unemployed. Such kind of, we take the calculation of all those people and we come to a calculation called as usual principal status unemployment, UPS unemployment. The person covered may be classified into those working or available for work in their principal activity factor and subsidy factor. So that number is given in the column beside. Next is current weekly status unemployment. This estimates measures unemployment with respect to 1 week. In the previous usual principal status, it is for a year. Second one is for a week, current weekly. Third one, current daily status unemployment, is the people who are unemployed in a day. Daily status is put up for each day of preceding 7 days. So how many people are unemployed? Usual principal and subsidiary status, UPSS. It's a hybrid concept which incorporates both the time and the work status. It includes workers who are outside the UPS workforce but had worked for 30 days or more. It's a hybrid which includes both principal and subsidiary status. Now, growth in employment between 66th round and 68th round. According to usual status, the workforce at all India level was about 459 million as on 1st January 2010. That is the 66th round of calculation that was being made, which increased to 472.9 million in 2012. That is in 68. That means 66 was 2010 calculation, 67th is 2011 calculation, and 68th round calculation, this yearly calculation, is done in 2012. So at that time, the number of people who are unemployed have increased from 459 to 472.9 million. So that is how we can understand the unemployment is increasing day by day. Now if we look, now from 2012 it was 68. So 2022 it is 78. Now this year it's 77th round. If you look, the number of employed have increased drastically in the last 10 years. So that is the biggest fate of our country. Now the causes of unemployment in India. First of all, rapid growth of population. So population increasing, all people have to be employed. So that is not possible, first of all. Second, insufficient rate of economic progress. Now even if the population is increasing, on the other hand, if there is economic development, we will get employment. But the economic development is also not there. Absence of employment opportunities, activities other than agriculture. So people who are, the major chunk of the people are employed only in agriculture, and there are no possibility of getting employed in any other sectors. So that is absence of employment opportunities. Seasonal employment. Agriculture in India offers seasonal employment. Thus agricultural labor remains idle during the off season. Joint family system. Existence of joint family system in India promotes disguised unemployment. That means in a joint family, only one or two will go to work and they will feed the others. So that also leads to disguised unemployment. Increasing turnouts of students from Indian universities. During the last decade, educated employment has increased due to rapid turnout of graduates from the Indian universities. Moreover, the Indian education system, more emphasis is placed on engineering and other technical subjects rather on art subjects. So as a result of this, people who are coming out from the engineering sector is more, and that much industries we don't have. So children don't go to some other sectors and they don't try to get employed in any other sectors. As a result of which, educated unemployment is much more. Slow development of industries. Of course, industrialization is very slow in India. Capital intensive technology. Because science and technology has increased, machines have replaced human beings. As a result of which, that people get unemployed. Lack of employability of the educated. Though those people who are getting good qualification, many of the young unemployed have rather poor qualification in terms of their performance at the examination and have little aptitude or the capacity for the type of work they are aspiring for. The employability, however, is a more serious problem and is a more challenge to the entire educational system. So either they get into work which is not up to their educational qualification, or they want to get into work for which they don't have educational qualification. Both of this leads to a large amount of unemployment. Now, programs of employment generation and poverty elevation. What are the programs by the government? Earlier programs. The Community Development Program, launched on 2nd October 1952, constitutes the first organized effort at rural reconstruction. The important ones are Rural Works Program, Small Farmers Development Agency, Marginal Farmers and Agricultural Laborers, and so on and so forth. There are many programs initiated by the government in order to uplift the unemployed and also the poverty. Some important are Swarna Jayanti Grama Swarojkar Yojana, SJGSY. It was introduced in 1999 as a result of restructuring the combining IRDP, DWCRA and Million Well Scheme. All these are schemes into a single self-employment program. It aims at promoting micro enterprise and helping the rural poor into self-help groups. So that is one project. Second is Prime Minister's Rojgar Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Rojgar Yojana, which you might have heard. Every day work is provided. This was launched in 1993 by merging JRY with other similar schemes. The scheme aims at providing sustained employment to the educated unemployed youth in micro enterprise. So that is Pradhan Mantri Rojgar Yojana. Then we have Employment Assurance Scheme. 93 at 1772 backward districts in drought prone tribal and hilly areas. Subsequent program was extended to cover all the 5,448 rural blocks in the country. Sampurna Yojgar, to give employment opportunity to all, which was brought about in 1993. That was the UPA government that was done in 1993. Rural Employment Generation Program, RGP, launched in 1995 with the objective of creating self-employment opportunities in the rural areas and small towns. So that is what were the programs, and in this table actually you can see Employment Generation Program in 1972, which were the programs and what were the description, what was it aimed at. Employment Guarantee Scheme of Maharashtra to assist the economically weaker sections of rural society. Then we had Crash Scheme for rural employment, training rural youth for self-employment. The description was programming for training rural youth. IRDP for all-round development of rural poor through a program of asset endowment. NREP to provide profitable employment opportunities to rural poor. Then we have RLEGP for providing employment to landless farmers and laborers. SEEUY provide financial and technical assistance for self-employment. SEPUP to provide employment to urban poor through provision of subsidy and bank credit. Then we have Jawahar Rojgar Yojana to provide employment to rural unemployed. Nehru Rojgar Yojana providing employment to rural unemployed. Then we have SUWE, provide wages employment after arranging the basic facilities for poor people in urban areas where population is less than 1 lakh. Then we have other programs that are coming up, around 20 of them are there, which you can read and go through. Then Swarna Jayanti Shahari Rojgar Yojana, as the name tells, it's about employment opportunities in the urban areas. Launched afresh in lieu of the erstwhile Urban Poverty Elevation Program via NRY, PMI, UPEP, otherwise UBSP. Now SGSY is major ongoing scheme for self-employment of rural poor. The basic objective of the scheme is to bring assisted poor families above the poverty line by providing them income generating assets through a mix of bank credit and government subsidies. The scheme involves organization of the poor into SHGs, build their capacities through a process of social mobilization. Their training, selection of key activities, etc. are thereby done. Sixth, Pradhan Mantri Gramodaya Yojana. That means Pradhan Mantri is Gramodaya for the rural development. Pradhan Mantri the objective of this program is improving the quality of people in rural areas by focusing on village level development in 5 critical areas, primarily health, primary education, drinking water, housing and rural roads. So that was Pradhan Mantri Gramodaya Yojana. The prime focus of the program is on construction of new roads. The key elements of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana are preparation of master plans, like district rural roads plan to be generated, project implementation units to be formed to ensure professional and timely completion, execution on a project mode, ensuring standard specifications including adequate cross drainage works, time bound execution and strict quality control. The program further emphasizes ready availability of land for roads, maintenance of roads, encouraging use of locally available materials for roads, planting of trees on either sides of roads, and proposals have been received from several states and others are expected shortly. So that is about the program. Seventh one, Swayam Siddha program. It aims at improving access of women to microcredit, involving women in local level planning and awareness generation and formation of women into self-help groups. Next is Indira Awas Yojana, implemented as an independent scheme since 1996. It aims to provide assistance for construction, upgradation of dwelling units. So it's Awas, housing projects of the government for BPL people. Rural households are being created. Then we have Antyodaya Anna Yojana, food project. Provide food grains at highly subsidized rate to 1 crore poorest families out of the poverty line families. So provide food grains at rupees 2 per kg for wheat and 3 per kg for rice to poor families under the targeted public distribution system. So this is the Yojanas. Then we have Janashri Bhima Yojana, group insurance scheme for people below poverty line, implemented in June 2000. The beneficiaries would get up to 20,000 for natural death, 25,000 for partial disability due to accidents, and 50,000 for death or total permanent disability in accidents. So this is about the health covered or life related Yojana. Then we have Valmiki Ambedkar Awas Yojana. A program facilitates the construction and upgradation of dwelling units for slum dwellers and provides a healthy and enabling urban environment through community toilets under Nirmal Bharat Abhiyan, component of the scheme. So that is what is the program of Valmiki Ambedkar Awas Yojana. Then we have National Food for Work program. The program was implemented in 2004 in 150 most backward districts of the country. Objective to intensify the generation of supplementary wage employment. Program is open to all rural people who are in need of wage employment and desire to do manual unskilled work. Next, National Social Assistance Program provides benefits under the National Old Age Pension Scheme, National Family Benefit Scheme and National Maternity Benefit Scheme, Midday Meal Scheme, Rural Group Life Insurance Scheme. All these are insurance scheme provides for a life cover of rupees 5,000 at a nominal monthly premium. Ganga Kalyan scheme aims to support poor farmers by providing subsidy and technical assistance for developing assured irrigation. Then we have Integrated Watershed Management Program during the 11th plan. The 3 area development programs, namely Integrated Wasteland Development Program, Drought Prone Area Development and Desert Development Program, into a single program called Integrated Watershed Management Program. Consolidation is for optimum use of resources, sustainable outcome and integrated planning. So this is a modified IWMP program. Then other programs. There are a number of other programs like National Rural Health Mission, Janani Suraksha Yojana, District Rural Industries Project, Jai Prakash Rojgar Yojana, Annapurna Indira Awas Yojana. All these programs are made so that the poverty can be removed and employment can be generated. National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. It was a government act provide a legal guarantee of 100 days of wage employment in a financial year to every rural household whose adult members volunteer to do unskilled manual labor. So they have to give, the government has to give work for these people under NREGA Act. Government notifies a minimum wage rate which in any case shall not be less than 60 rupee per day. 60 rupee per day minimum they have to get by this work yojana. Even if a person is already employed, engaged, she has a right to demand employment under NREGA. Priority shall be given to women. At least 1/3 of the beneficiaries shall be women who have registered and requested for work under the scheme. So that is a scheme. Now we go to an important part that is called as SHG, which you might have heard, self-help group, that is actually focused on developing the rural area. SHGs are small voluntary association, people from the same socio-economic background with the purpose of solving their common problems through self-help. The groups are known by different names in different people. This thing, some of the terms are Sangha, Samuha, Mandal, Dhangam, Samiti, depending upon the region. Here also we have Sangam meetings over here in Karnataka. The concept of HGG is based on following principle. Self-help supplemented with mutual help can be a powerful vehicle for poor in their socio-economic development. Self-help is very important. Participative financial service management is more responsive and efficient. Poor need only credit support. Need not only credit support but also saving and other services. Poor can save and are bankable, and SHGs as clients result in wider outreach, lower transaction costs and much lower risk costs for the banks. Creation of common fund by contributing small saving on a regular basis. Flexible democratic system of working. Learning is done on trust with a bare documentation and without any security. They are loaned for small and frequent and for short duration. Defaulters are rare, mainly due to group pressure, and there are periodic meetings. Meeting happening for the self-help group. Thus, self-help groups are voluntary organizations which disburse microcredit to the members and facilitate them to enter into entrepreneur activities. National Bank of Agriculture and Rural Development, NABARD, launched a pilot project for linking SHG in Feb 1992. Reserve Bank of India advised the commercial banks to participate actively in the linkage program. So that is what is about the SHG. Objective. A self-help group is a group of 10 to 20 women or men who work for the capacity building themselves. The goal of self-help groups is to establish effective agents of change. They serve as a platform to establish the banking with the poor, which is reliable, accountable and a profitable business. SHG also enables livelihood opportunity for village women through microcredit with the existing banks in the area specifically. To meet the credit needs of the poor by combining flexibility, sensitivity and responsiveness of the informal credit system with the strength of technical and administrative capabilities and financial resources of formal credit institutions. To build mutual trust and confidence between the bankers and the rural poor. To encourage banking activity both on thrift as well as credit side to a segment of the population that are formal financial institutions usually find difficult to cover. So the next is women empowerment. Women are integral part of our economy. All-round development of these women are very important. What are the programs? Now generally in India, women is supposed to be a weaker section of the society. They are, especially in the rural areas, they are always kept at home. They are supposed to do the work at home, look after the kitchen and do the kitchen work at home, and they are not allowed to go out or go for education. So for their upbringing, we have a lot of women empowerment programs so that they get equal participation in the politics and also the polity and the other jobs, they get equal participation. Now, National Policy for Women Empowerment of Women 2001. The goal of this policy is to bring about the advancement, development and empowerment of women. The policy will be widely disseminated as well as to encourage active participation of all stakeholders. So the objective of this policy are: 1. creating an environment through positive economic and social policies for full development of women, the de jure and de facto enjoyment of all human rights. It means all have the freedom to enjoy the basic human rights in political, economical, social, cultural and civil. Equal access to participation and decision making of women in social, political and economic life of the nation. Equal access to women to healthcare, quality education at all levels. Strengthening legal systems aimed at elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Changing societal attitudes and community practices by active participation and involvement of both men and women. Mainstreaming of gender perspectives in the development program. Elimination of discrimination and all forms of violence against women and of girl child. Building and strengthening partnership with civil society, particularly women's organization. Now, 11th 5-year plan empowerment strategies are: first, social empowerment. Every woman have to be socially empowered. Provides them easy and equal access to all basic minimum services so as to enable them to realize their potential fully. Economic empowerment ensures provision of training, employment and income generation activity with both forward and backward linkages. Gender justice, eliminate all form of gender inequality. That means no one can keep a woman aside because on basis of her sex. SHGs and women empowerment. Now, what role does SHGs play in women empowerment? SHGs are seen as important tool for empowerment of women. In India, usually self-help groups are women-oriented, and most of the activities are concentrated towards saving and credit activities. There is a common perception in development literature that increased participation of women in savings and credit activities or economic attainment will empower women. Thus, SHG are seen as an important tool for empowering women. SHG have contributed to women empowerment in the following ways. First of all, they could develop their skill and abilities in various productive activities. There is an increase in their income, savings and consumption expenditure. Increased self-reliance and self-confidence have improved the ability of women to mobilize various public service for their benefit. They have become bold and can speak freely in front of crowd. They can carry out any type of official work without fear. The social horizon of the members have also widened. They have made many friends. The illiterate and semi-literate women have got a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. They have got self-esteem. They have got a high self-esteem which enhances their capacity to work. With improvements in women's economic opportunities, the ability to take collective action, there has been significant decline in gender-based problems such as domestic violence, dowry, polygamy, etc. The SHG can play an important role in creating awareness on health issues through group meetings. Also have created better understanding between members of different religious groups as members of SHGs belong to different religions. Thus, SHG have made a lasting impact on the lives of women, particularly in rural areas. Yeah, so that was about the development of women through SHGs. Next, we will move on. Empowerment of women through SHGs. Yeah. Next, we move on to minimum needs program. Minimum needs program was introduced during the 5th year plan to provide basic needs of people so as to improve their living standards. The concept of NMP emerged and crystallized out of the experience of the previous plans that neither growth nor social consumption can be sustained, much less accelerated, without being mutually supportive. The program is essentially an investment in HRD. The provision of free or subsidized services through public agencies is expected to improve the consumption levels of those living below the poverty line. The integration of social consumption programs with economic development programs is necessary to accelerate growth and to ensure the achievement of plan objectives. In the absence of such program, the pressure for investment in the development of infrastructure and production sector are left with relatively small allocation for social services. The minimum needs program lays down the urgency for providing social services according to nationally accented norms within time-bound program. Its allocation are earmarked and it seeks to ensure the necessary provision of resources. The program introduced in the 5th 5-year plan will continue during the 6th plan. Its components are as follows. First of all, elementary education. Second, rural health, rural water supply, rural roads, rural electrification, housing assistance to rural landless laborers, environmental improvement of urban slums, and nutrition. The need for integration is especially greater at micro level where the programs are implemented. First of all, principle. What are principles based on? It should first be implemented in areas which deserve it the most. All the aspects of the program should be implemented as a package, deal with intersectoral coordination. The objectives are rural health. First of all, to better the rural health. Second, nutrition, extend nutrition support to 11 million eligible people. Initially, there were 8 components of MNP: elementary education, rural health, rural water supply, rural electrification, rural roads, rural housing, environmental improvement of slums in cities, and nutrition. Adult education was added to the list of MNP components in the 6th plan. Now, development of women and children in rural areas. The primary objective of the scheme is to focus attention on women members of rural families below the poverty line, to provide them the opportunity of self-employment on a sustained basis. The following are the objectives of this scheme at micro level. First of all, improve the quality of life of women. Involve rural women and children to understand their wants like hygiene, environment, clean water drinking. To provide an opportunity for income generating activities for individuals through a group of women. Self-subsistence even after help is withdrawn. Now the strategy is a bit unclear. The text, the basic unit under DWRA is a group of 10 to 15 poor women who have come together to help each other in order to use their collective strength to break social bond. The group size may be smaller in difficult and air-flung areas. Its page number 84 is a bit unclear, so those who have text, please use the text to understand the class. So the implementing the strategy. Procurement. Before undertaking activities, women were made aware of the objectives and benefits of group information under the scheme, undertaking their potential and recognizing their strength. At the operational level, inputs coaching for such an exercise by the group is given by Grama Sevika for a period of 2 years, who not only creates a group but also nurtures the group and orients them in availing the benefits of various programs or schemes. Now, implementing agencies and staffing pattern. What are the implementing agencies and staffing pattern of DWCRA? Implemented by the district rural development agencies to facilitate the implementation of scheme. One post of assistant project officer has been sanctioned to a part of DRDA. One additional post of Grama Sevika has also been sanctioned at the block level to look after the activities of the program. This is in addition to the 2 Grama Sevika in the normal block pattern. So that is how the team, the assistant project manager, the additional Gram Sevika along with 2 Gram Sevikas and Mukhya Sevika already available with the CD block form a team to help the implementation of DRDA. So that is about the implementing agency and staffing pattern. The community-based convergence services, CBCS, as a component of DWCRA was started in 1991 in a few districts, which acts as a pilot program. The objective was to create greater awareness among the village communities to enable them to demand social services provided by the state in a better manner and also share responsibility in the management and implementation of these services. So that is what CBCS is. Now the childcare activities are also there. Objectives to provide creche services for children of working DWCRA women. That means they will take care. In this creche, the children will be taken care. Setting up literacy centers for them. Filling up critical gaps in the areas of immunization, nutrition, etc. Provide some relief for the physically handicapped children. Children below 6 years are the target groups under child care activities. Now, funding pattern. This DWCRA group gets 25,000 as a revolving fund to meet capital expenditure. The revolving fund has been increased from 15,000 to 25,000 in 1995 to 96. Presently, the expenditure of the revolving fund is being shared by the center and the state 50-50 basis. Coverage. Initially, no specific coverage of vulnerable groups such as SC/ST was fixed. However, in 1998, made compulsory that 50% of the group have to be women belonging to SC/ST. Now, the scheme of DWCRA is no doubt a promising program. Now, but the scheme suffers from certain lacuna, which if removed would result in greater success of the scheme. Now, that is what are the negative or the limitations. The assistant provider is too meager to start any activity. No guarantees are extended on behalf of the group to enable them to get additional resource from fund. No attempt to combat the middleman's role in marketing the products, goods produced by the groups. There is political madding, the section of both members of the group and the activity to be undertaken by it. The Grama Sevika meant for supervision is unable to attend the needs of the group owing to heavy burden of work. Lack of commitment among the supervisory staff in making the scheme a success. Lack of publicity with regard to availability of the scheme and its benefits to the rural folk. The scheme is merged with Swarna Jayanti Grama Swarojkar Yojana since 1999. What is this? Pradhan Mantri Grama Sadak Yojana. Rural road connectivity is not only a key component of rural development, promotes access to economic and social services. Roads are very much important for all the development activities that are required. Pradhan Mantri Sadak Yojana is a 100% centrally sponsored scheme. 50% of the sales of high-speed diesel is earmarked for the program. Pradhan Mantri Yojana is a national wide plan in India to provide good all-weather road connectivity to unconnected villages. Now, objectives. The primary objective of PMGSY is to provide connectivity by way of all-weather roads. So, the connectivity is the major primary objective, and the details of the connectivity issues at different places are being given. Finally, we come to the supporting last section. In order to implement this, an online management and OMMS GIS system was developed to identify target groups for the monitor. In order to monitor the progress was developed. Along with that, it is developed by the e-governance development of CDCA Pune and is one of the biggest database in India. The system manages and monitors all the phases of road development. One second. All phases of road development. Incorporates advanced features like e-payment, password protected PDF files, etc. So, PMGSY will permit the upgradation of the existing roads in those districts where all the eligible habitations of the designated population size have been provided with all-weather road connectivity. However, it must be noted that upgradation is not central to the program and cannot exceed 20,000 of the state's allocation as long as eligible unconnected habitations in the state still exist. So, this is about the roads that are to be developed in the rural areas. So, dear friends, by this we come to an end of this chapter. Actually, the main focus of the chapter is about how to develop. Now, what is poverty? We understood what are causes of poverty. Then look unemployment, its causes. Then we looked into the government plans. That is actually the major chunk. What are the government plans to remove poverty and remove unemployment, the SHGs and the other programs of the government in order to empower the women and also to create employment and also to remove poverty. If in case of any doubts, this is actually a theoretical topic. There is no much technical things to understand. It's about learning by heart all the yojanas and trying to answer the question. So, if there is any doubt with regard to any section, please do feel free to call back or put up a message in the group. Thank you.